Good morning, Hawaii. I'm Paula Akana.
And I'm Larry Amata. Welcome to KITV for a special coverage of Governor Abercrombie's fourth State of the State address.
For the next hour or so, he'll be laying out his top priorities for the upcoming year. And one of them surely will be his goal for early childhood education.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the governor has called it his highest priority last year, his $30 million funding plan, falling short quite a bit with Hawaii lawmakers only funding about $6 million of that. 900 out of 3,500 preschool kids have a chance at that program so far. But no doubt he's going to try to, he's been talking about recently how he's going to expand that as best he can, but asking for a much smaller number, about $4.5 million to start with to expand that program.
And I think he's going in thinking there's a much better chance this year, funding-wise, with $844 million in the general fund, which is a huge turnaround from what he's had budget-wise in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Another issue he's likely to highlight is the state's minimum wage. Lawmakers failing to raise it last year, and Abercrombie calling it a shameful thing. He's been very vocal about that.
He's also going to reflect on this past year, likely to highlight the state's economic recovery, and as we said, that big $844 million that sits in that general fund right now.
Yeah, no doubt that is going to be a big election issue because he knows he can use that as a strong card. Also going to use that to build a larger rainy day fund, which people have been very strongly supportive of. As you can see right there, U.S. Senator Brian Schatz, who took over the seat of the late Senator Daniel Inouye, also in a what's expected to be a pretty big race between him and U.S. Representative Colleen Hanabusa.
Other people we see in the crowd was former Governor John Waihee. We'll see many of the former governors usually attending the State of the State address. Abercrombie there speaking with Senator Brickwood Galataria as they kind of gather everybody around and get ready for this.
And a little easier for a lot of the representatives at Capitol Hill to be here because the House right now, they're in a recess for the rest of the week, which has been a big point of contention because there are a number of people here in Hawaii too on unemployment benefits who are saying, hey, what's going on? Why are they allowing this longer break? But it gives a chance for those politicians to come here and mingle with everybody else on an important day.
And of course that unemployment issue affecting us on the state level. So lawmakers taking a look at what's going on in Capitol Hill, or as you said, not going on right now.
Yeah, no doubt the governor is going to be talking about the prison system and bringing back prisoners here to Hawaii. That's been something that he's been pretty vocal about the past couple of years for sure. And
the homeless issue will be also, we suspect, another high part of his agenda right now. But I think we are just about getting ready to start. Everybody is seated and waiting. Let's take a listen. We see in the red right there, Auntie Aggie Cope, and her son Kamaki Kanahele from the Waianae Coast, kind of the matriarch of the Waianae Coast, and Hanai Mali to Governor Abercrombie.
I think here we go.
Will the joint session of the 27th Legislature please come to order. Before receiving the governor's message, I would like to recognize some of our honored guests. Lieutenant Governor Shen Tsutsui, Chief Justice Mark E. Rechtenwald, Ms. Colette Machado, Chair, Hawaiian Office Affairs, Hawaiian Affairs. Other distinguished guests joining us in the House chambers this morning is Dr. Nancy Caraway, wife of the Governor Abercrombie, Nancy Caraway. And former Governor George R. Ariyoshi. former Governor John Wahe and Mrs. Lynn Wahe. And Senator Brian Schacht and Mrs. Linda Schacht. Senator Mazie Hirono and Mr. Leighton Oshima. And Congresswoman Colleen Hanabusa. And Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Associate Justice Paula A. Nakayama. Associate Justice Simeon R. Akoba Jr. Associate Justice Sabrina S. McKenna. Associate Justice Richard W. Pollock. And we have Major General Gary Harrer, United States Army Pacific. And we have Colonel Brian Anikariko. We have Lieutenant General Jay Rosinsky, former Commander, United States Army Pacific, retired. Mr. Scott Dewar, Consul General of Australia. Mr. Walter K. Pike, Consul General of Korea. Mr. Julio Torres, Consul General of the Philippines. Mr. V.C. Chu, Director General, Taipei Economic and Cultural Office. And we have Consul Chair Gladys Spicer, County of Maui. And Consul Vice Chair Ikaika Anderson, City and County of Honolulu. Members, we are honored to have in the gallery today members of the Japanese National Diet who have come to visit our state and initiate a friendship association with members of the Hawaii legislature. These Diet members are officers of the Japan-Hawaii Legislators Friendship Association. If I can introduce them. Mr. Hiromi Yoshida, Chairperson. Mr. Masaji Matsumura, Chief Whip. Ms. Aiko Shimajiri, Vice Chairperson. Mr. Kenta Wakabayashi, Director General. And Mr. Iwao Hori, Deputy Director General. Also with them is the Consul General of Japan, Mr. Toye Shigeeda. The chair hereby appoints the following legislators to escort the Honorable Neil Abercrombie, Governor of the State of Hawaii, to the washroom. On behalf of the House, Representative Scott Saiki and Representative Aaron Johansson. In behalf of the Senate, Senator Will Asparo and Senator Sam Sloan. Please proceed. The chair hereby requests the following legislators to present lays to the governor. On behalf of the House, Representative Rita Cabanilla, and on behalf of the Senate, Senator Michelle Kidani. Please proceed. Right, members of the 27th Legislature, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending our warmest aloha and welcome to the Governor of the State of Hawaii, the Honorable Neil Abercrombie. Please rise.
Very kind, sir. Thank you very much. Well, thank you, everybody. You're very kind. Thank you very much. You're very kind. Thank you. I felt like Jay Leno saying hello to Jimmy Kimmel. Thank you very much. Well, before I begin, can we have a big hand for our congressional delegation who are smart enough to be here rather than in Washington, where it's snowing a foot right now? Madam President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Hawaii State Legislature, former governors, distinguished justices of the courts, mayors in absence, congressional delegation, other elected officials, honored guests, family and friends, Auntie Aggie, Kamaki, Nancy, aloha. As we begin our session, I ask that we set aside our political preoccupations of the moment and reflect on the privilege we have to serve and the responsibility we have to look to horizons beyond our own concerns. I ask that we begin today with a moment of silence to honor Hawaii National Guard Sergeant Drew Scobie of Kailua, who died earlier this month in Afghanistan. He was 25 years old. He leaves behind his wife, his 4-year-old son, and another child yet to be born. Our hearts and best thoughts are with his family during this time. On March 25th, the legislature will hold its joint session for the Hawaii Medal of Honor ceremony to recognize fallen soldiers with Hawaii ties. And I think everyone here wants to work for the day when we have no more fallen to recognize for their ultimate sacrifice, no more families to console for their loss. But until that day, I ask for us to join in a moment of silence and reflection in honor of Sergeant Scobie and his family. If those who are able to rise would do so at this time may we have a moment of silence on behalf of Sergeant Scopey and his family. Mahalo, thank you very much. When I entered office, we issued a call for a new day in Hawaii. We presented and implemented a plan that has guided this administration and our state over the last 3 years through very difficult times. We faced hard choices and had to make some tough decisions. I'm grateful for this legislature's collaboration as we navigated through these troubled waters. The question before us then is, what direction shall we now set our sights? Where do we see our Hawaii, our people, our keiki, our kupuna, our aina, our businesses in the future? To answer that core question, we need look no further than our island values. We must be trustees with a duty not just to the present, but to the long-term future of our islands. We must be stewards with a responsibility to protect our identity, our precious human and natural resources, and become more self-sufficient. For 3 years, we have strategically managed our resources, endured shared sacrifices, made fiscally prudent decisions, and have seen our economy measurably improve. This has resulted in a general fund balance of $844 million for the fiscal year 2013, an historically unprecedented figure that represents a turnaround of more than $1 billion since 2010. I want to extend my appreciation to all of you in this legislature for helping to make some of those tough decisions. Extend our thanks to our public sector employees who made sacrifices, and the people and businesses of Hawaii whose faith and patience made this effort possible. I am able to report to you today our state government's financial house now stands on solid ground. We're entering a new phase. The administration's package and supplemental budget do not rely on any new taxes or fees. On the contrary, as you will see, I believe we may be able to reduce taxes in key areas. We have the resources to deliver services to the people of Hawaii while living within our means. And what is most important, my administration's budget philosophy ensures our budget is sustainable. Our financial plan accommodates any fluctuations in revenue projections in the years to come. We are stabilizing future costs and expenditures. We are concluding collective bargaining agreements, several of which are for multiple years. We have taken affirmative action in addressing our state's unfunded liabilities for medical benefits for retirees and pensions, salvaging both from fiscal disaster. We are committed to strengthening the finances of the state with a plan that builds our state revenues up to 10% of general fund revenues. These reserves will allow us to weather possible future economic downturns and to guard against the public service cutbacks of the recent past. Financial rating agencies recognize our efforts and have improved their outlook assessment of us from negative to stable to positive. What then of the future? I shall outline a few central elements for your attention this morning, and I will address other issues in more detail, such as housing, agriculture, energy, etc., through messages to you in the days immediate following this address. First, there is no more critical issue before us than early childhood development and education. I look forward to strengthening relationships with the private and nonprofit sectors by the passage of the constitutional amendment to provide for partnerships in early education. I appreciate the legislature's support last session for our expansion of the preschool Open Doors program. Administrative rules are nearly complete. The program envisions providing assistance to over 1,200 families of 4-year-old children that will no longer be eligible to attend kindergarten as of August 1st of this year. However, this modest approach is not enough. Some 5,000 4-year-olds will be affected by this change in the age requirement. Some families have the financial capacity to afford the average preschool rate of over $8,000 per year. Many middle-income families will struggle and have to make difficult choices. Most lesser-income families will be precluded from the option of making any choices. We know that the early years of a child's development are crucial in setting the foundation for a child's behavior and lifelong learning. From birth to age 5, more than 85% of a person's brain development takes place. An alarming number of our children are entering school without the basics needed to succeed in school. Wanting to read, vocabulary acquisition, learning how to behave within a group. A lesson we could all take to heart ourselves. Investing in our children's early years will pay dividends down the road in the form of healthy and contributing adults, reduced crime and incarceration, and less dependency on social services. We invest in ourselves by investing in early childhood education. Our plan is to build and strengthen Hawaii's mixed delivery system of early learning programs. Community-based preschools are now and will be a key component. To expand access for 4-year-olds, we are proposing direct services in 32 classrooms across the state, half of which are on neighbor islands. We are seeking additional resources for family-child interaction learning programs. We are proposing support for families who participate in the preschool open doors. These requests total approximately $8 million. Our plan is targeted, aimed at helping those who otherwise have little or no options. These initial investments will serve an additional 1,040 children and their families. Now, I realize this is an election year. Political agendas and ambitions are being formulated. But let us take children out of these equations. Let us resolve, all of us, to be champions of children. You have my pledge and my word on that. Our unemployment has improved to the 5th lowest in the nation. 3 years ago, the Unemployment Compensation Trust Fund was practically bankrupt. Our progress over the last 3 years has allowed us to reduce the unemployment insurance tax rates for 2014 by 35%. Employers will pay $130 million less in taxes, or $300 less per employee on average for 2014. But a hard-working sector of our community has gone 7 years without seeing their wages rise. Therefore, I will be proposing a bill to increase the minimum wage by $1.50 to at least $8.75 starting in January 2015. Average weekly earnings have increased 16% since 2007. For minimum wage workers, it's 0. Currently, 21 other states plus the District of Columbia have higher minimum wage rates than Hawaii, while our minimum wage earners are confronted by much higher living costs. It is a myth that increases to the minimum wage just benefit entry-level workers, mostly teenagers. In Hawaii, 85% of minimum wage workers are 21 years old or older. The last 4 times the minimum wage was raised, on average, the number of jobs increased by 2.2% over the following 12 months. 20% of our children in Hawaii under 6 years of age, over 22,000 children, live in low-income working families. Low-income working families. Now, I'm aware that the issue of tip credit in the hospitality, restaurant service sector was the stumbling block last year. I want you to know I'm prepared to accept a reasonable accommodation on this point. Employees who earn tips, as I did, waiting tables at Chuck's Steakhouse in Waikiki, have the opportunity to earn tips and to add to their income. Minimum wage earners in other jobs do not. They cannot offset any deductions. Let's move quickly and resolutely on this issue. Homelessness is an issue for which there is no simple answer. In 2011, I established the Hawaii Interagency Council on Homelessness. The council is comprised of State Department directors, federal agency representatives, and community, religious, and business leaders. Mayors and county councils across the state are united in coming to grips with this issue. On Oahu, where the need is greatest, we could not have a better partner than Mayor Kirk Caldwell and the City Council, led by Council Chair Ernie Martin. In December, the Interagency Council submitted an action plan to you for your consideration. We must now deliver on this plan. For example, by giving support to the Housing First program, which houses and cares for the chronically homeless and those who suffer from a disability. Housing First is an evidence-based best practice currently being used in Denver, Seattle, and Utah. It has established that providing housing and support services under this mode saves taxpayers money and reduces homelessness. When I took office, many inmates served their sentences out of state. This sent Hawaii dollars out of the state and took many inmates away from appropriate facilities and alternative programs here in the islands. In addition, it often decreased the chances of successful rehabilitation as prisoners were away from their families. We had no plan or commitment to do or act otherwise. Nearly 2,000 prisoners in that context were in mainland facilities. At the end of the last fiscal year, we reduced that number by 600. Starting this July, more prisoners will be coming home when we reopen Kulani Correctional Facility on the Big Island. Thank you. It's clear we need additional facilities. Most of our current decades-old structures are deteriorated, over capacity, and poorly designed. The Department of Public Safety has issued a request for information to procure a comprehensive plan to return prisoners, build facilities with sufficient capacity to keep those prisoners who present a danger to our community properly incarcerated, and to provide programmatic options while keeping our community safe. And here may I add a personal note of gratitude from me and my wife, Dr. Nancy Caraway, to this legislature. You have passed, and we are now implementing a Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights, only the second such law in our nation. Headlines from around the world as recently as yesterday confirm a sordid picture of exploitation and degradation. You have also strengthened laws against domestic violence and human trafficking. Thanks to all of you, the intense work of the Attorney General's Office, the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, the Civil Rights Commission, the State Commission on the Status of Women, and the Office of Community Services, these crimes against our common humanity will not be tolerated in Hawaii. Now, there are times for planning and there's times for acting. Now is the time to preserve open spaces at Turtle Bay. The dispute over the expansion of the resort into adjacent coastal and open lands has been going on for decades. Whether the courts in permitting proceedings in the North Shore community, in the community at large, this issue has been divisive and disruptive. I'm requesting authority to use general obligation bonds to obtain a conservation easement of more than 600 acres at the site. This guarantees these lands will remain open and free of development and open to public access in perpetuity. Similarly, I'm requesting general obligation funds to enable the state to work with a renewable energy company, NextEra, to purchase agricultural and conservation lands currently owned by the Dole Company. Nearly 20,000 acres of open space between Wahiawa and Haleiwa on the North Shore of Oahu. We need to make this investment to secure these lands so they do not become a temptation for development and urbanization. Moreover, this purchase will ensure a combination of energy production and contemporary farming. We move to Mauna Kea. Mauna Kea is Hawaii's gift to the world, the best place on the planet to observe the universe. It is without peer. It provides an unparalleled opportunity to advance our knowledge of our universe. Today we celebrate 50 years of astronomy in Hawaii, with 13 observatories from 11 countries and over $1 billion in infrastructure atop Mauna Kea. One project will solidify Hawaii's position as the world's premier astronomy center, the $1.3 billion 30-meter telescope. The TMT will be the catalyst for the development of high-tech and high-paying jobs. TMT is presently partnering with the Institute of Astronomy's Akamai Workforce Initiative to train local college students for technical fields. The initiative promotes STEM initiatives relating to local robotics and science programs. It also is investing $1 million every year in education so our children can reach for the stars. Our state must support and ensure this tremendous opportunity comes to fruition. This leads us to the reality of climate change, which is becoming more and more evident across Hawaii and the planet. Our islands are especially vulnerable to the impacts, and we cannot wait to act. In the fall, I was appointed by President Obama to serve on the state, local, and tribal leaders task force on climate preparedness and resilience. At our first meeting in Washington in December, governors, mayors, and tribal leaders from around our country discussed the effects of climate change on their jurisdictions. One thing was apparent despite our vast geographic, topographic, and community differences. Today's climate changes are warning bells, signaling the necessity for preparedness now. At that forum, we emphasized that the Hawaiian Islands are a learning laboratory for scalable, innovative mitigation, for adaptation policies and techniques, for providing a model on local and regional collaboration. The State Office of Planning has been instrumental in coordinating efforts to update our Ocean Resources Management Plan. We have a State Sustainability Coordinator in the Department of Land and Natural Resources with authority to work across department lines for planning purposes. The Senate House Majority Package includes the Hawaii Climate Adaptation Initiative, which supports research, planning, and coordination. The Interagency Climate Council plays a key role in this initiative. I will be convening Resilient Hawaii forums this year to engage stakeholders, Native Hawaiian organizations, natural resource managers, the military, tourism officials, agricultural representatives, researchers, and government at all levels. These forums will create a climate change roadmap for Hawaii. Protection of our environment from invasive species must be a top priority. We are experiencing a biological crisis and deadly threat to our isolated ecosystem, our natural resources, and our economy. A multitude of invaders, such as the little fire ant that can blind animals, destroy nesting birds and hatchlings, the coconut rhinoceros beetle, and parasites attacking coffee crops, graphically illustrate the seriousness of this issue. The work of the Interagency Hawaii Invasive Species Council is tasked with combating this menace. I endorse your legislative initiatives proposing up to $5 million to meet operating costs of invasive species program. This session, my administrative package will include a sustainability investment strategy to advance targets in clean energy development, local food production, natural resource management, waste reduction, smart growth, green jobs creation, and housing for the working middle class. This includes funding to support watershed protection, farming infrastructure, invasive species management, e-waste recycling, transportation planning, and creating the jobs associated with that and meeting needs. Early in my remarks, thank you, Miley. Early in my remarks, I commented on the necessity of providing preschool education as a foundation for the future of our children. That observation needs to be bookended by consideration of ways to promote security and dignity on the other end of the spectrum of life, those of us like myself experiencing our senior years. Not only do we need to protect seniors from fraud and abuse and assist with care issues, but I believe we can provide tax relief measures that will have practical and immediate benefits for seniors. I will be asking the legislature to look at the way we tax seniors in order to provide more equity and fairness for those on fixed and middle incomes to see that more money remains in their pocketbooks. We need to bring parity to the way we look at and tax retirement income. I accept and understand the message on pension income and taxation. If you have an employer-sponsored pension, it is exempt from income tax, and that will not change. But everyone may not be aware that other pensions, not employer-based, are being taxed right now. Thousands of Hawaii seniors are paying income tax even on low and middle income retirement benefits. I propose to exempt any presently taxed income from all sources for taxpayers age 65 and older with an adjusted gross income of $25,000, an adjusted gross income of $35,000 for heads of households, or an adjusted gross income of $45,000 for joint filing. This assures that these seniors will not have their present retirement income taxed. This will affect as many as 25,000 or more seniors throughout Hawaii. I also propose to double the current refundable food excise tax credit for taxpayers 65 years or older whose AGI is less than $50,000. This is a direct payment to the senior taxpayer. This will affect as many as 110,000 Hawaii seniors or more. I am also requesting we increase the Kapuna Care budget by $4.2 million and make it permanent. This program enables seniors to remain and receive care in their homes. This is an investment that will pay big dividends as our senior population ages, grows in numbers, and lives longer. These proposals, my friends, address the practical, everyday reality of expenses for seniors. They're across-the-board fairness and application and can take effect immediately and fit comfortably into our long-term financial stabilization plan. I began my remarks today in sad recognition of the sacrifice of his life by Sergeant Scobie. I have spoken of other sacrifices we have made or need to make in acknowledgement of our responsibilities to and for each other and to advance the common good of us all. Referencing that sobering context, please allow me to conclude my thoughts today with some reflection on the passing of our beloved Loretta Fuddy. It is difficult even now, more than a month since her death, to accept its finality because of the vitality of her presence. I said at the time our hearts were broken, but I also know that she would remind us of the biblical admonition that life is for the living, the duty to carry on, to offer the hope and encouragement to others that marked her life, every day of it. I would like to thank the University of Hawaii Foundation for setting up the Loretta Deliana Fuddy Memorial Scholarship in Health, Human, and Public Service. This will provide a lasting legacy to the University of Hawaii students on any UH campus who are committed to pursuing a career in health and public and human services. Loretta was a lifelong supporter of public health measures. She was a lifelong advocate for families and children. She set the standard for helping those in dire need of services that promoted and nurtured their health and well-being. So I am requesting additional funding for the Department of Health's Early Intervention Services. The program provides critical services to children with developmental delays from birth to 3 years of age. The program provides positive intervention in the crucial areas of cognitive and physical function, social and emotional well-being, and adaptive skills. Loretta Fuddy was their champion. There are, of course, several budget requests and bills that will be proposed by the Department of Health, all of which are important. But nonetheless, I am asking for your specific attention to make funding for early intervention services a priority. This will serve as a fitting tribute and appropriate legacy to honor Loretta. There will be lasting benefits for the affected families and children, the children she loved and cared for passionately to her last day. Now, none of us knows with any certainty how much time will be given to us. What we do know is that the time given us as public servants is a public trust. We justify that trust only by acting in the public interest. The financial stability we've achieved, coupled with our long-term plan to sustain it, presents us with the opportunity to act both with confidence and with dispatch. In this legislature, public trust and the public interest can meet and be joined now. Let's do it together. Mahalo. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mahalo nui. Mahalo. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor Abercrombie. On behalf of the Senate and the House of Representatives, we would like to thank you for sharing with us your vision and ideas this morning. We would like to emphasize our willingness to work with you to find solutions to the many challenges that you just mentioned. And we will seek to accomplish our common goals and work collaboratively with you to work out our differences. With that, I now declare this joint session adjourned.
And there you have it, the Governor Neil Abercrombie's fourth State of the State address. And he kind of talked about those who began and ended his speech with those who need help the most, talking about early childhood initiative, which of course was his huge push last year. And ending, as he talked on, helping the kupuna on the other end of the spectrum, proposing that they exempt all sources of income for the low-income kupuna, and also doubling the food and excise tax credit for those earning under $50,000. So really running the gamut on those who need the help the most and are sometimes the weakest.
And those benefits for the kupuna also part of the legislative package that was put out early at the beginning of this legislative session. No surprise that the governor would focus on the budget surplus, being that this is a re-election year. He knows that he has a card to play with that one, saying that he will also not increase taxes or fees and would work toward possibly reducing that. Again, if he can pull that off, a big political card for him, as well as increasing the minimum wage, saying that he thinks he can increase it. He'd like to increase it by $1.50 up to at least $8.75, something that they made some headway on last legislative session, but didn't quite get close enough. Him saying this is a focus for him as well. Not surprising, he would bring up the homeless issue, something that, of course, the state and the county have been struggling with in how exactly to deal with this, being the scope of it is so huge. The city council, depending on, or the city, I should say, depending on money from the sale of 12 affordable buildings to fund a Housing First program, which the state is also very interested in maintaining, but he admitted it was going to be a struggle. It's going to be a difficult case.
Also touching on prisons, the fact that they brought home 600 out of 2,000 prisoners home to the islands. Kulani Prison, of course, going to be opening up in July, but that's only going to hold a couple of hundred, maybe 200 or 300 prisoners at the most. But he's pointing out that many of the facilities that we have here in much need of either repair or just new facilities to be built out. The problems that they've seen in in Halava and at OCCC and other places. So pointing out the need for new buildings to bring more prisoners home to Hawaii.
You know, I think kind of a reflection, too, of what's been happening more recently, what's been pretty hot in the news, you know, talking about invasive species. They had their sort of precursor committee hearing about, I think about a week ago,
Right.
where the Department of Health acting director, Gary Gill, came in and said, hey, look, you know, we've been cut back so much, and we have not only the problems we've been dealing with already with invasive species, but we're seeing new cases of dengue fever, mosquitoes, showing up at the airport, as well as the Department of Agriculture's quarantine branch manager saying, hey, we're dealing with these fire ants that are starting to spread to other islands, as well as these new
Rhino beetles and everything.
beetles.
New
So,
invasive species coming
seems like
through.
they caught a little fire right at the top of the legislative session, and that might be a good card for them.
Asking for $5 million more in that fight for invasive species. And as you said, Gary Gill and the Department of Agriculture saying that they just hope that means it'll be more bodies to help in that fight.
Yeah, they want to get back to where they were a few years ago. And also no surprise that he would you know, pay tribute to the passing of the Hawaii State Director, Loretta Fuddy, who was really considered a champion as far as early childhood health and building a lot of those programs, saying he's going to you know, really fight to make sure that some of her key programs will get the kind of funding they need. The Health Department's early intervention services, which was something that that was close to her heart, and would expect that he's going to get some pretty good support in that regard.
Senate President saying that they stand together, hoping to give as much cooperation between the two sides, and we'll see as this legislative session gets going. In case you missed any portion of the governor's speech, we'll have team coverage on his initiative starting tonight on KITV 4 News at 5.
And of course, on 6 and 10 as well. I'm Laurie Amata. Thanks so much for joining us.
Aloha. Paula Akana, we now join our regularly scheduled program already in progress. Aloha.